Does the prophet of the Mormon Church always tell the truth? Let's find out, shall we? As some of you may remember, my entire journey to excommunication can probably be traced back to when I first submitted an opposing vote to my stake president. Among my many points of opposition is that Russel M. Nelson, the current prophet and president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, has lied to the members of that church. And while many years have passed since then, I thought, in celebration of Russel M. Nelson's 101st birthday this week, why not get the evidence of his dishonesty back out into the world? But first, a message from the man himself.
There are few rewards as exciting as the discovery of truth through research well performed.
Truth number 2, truth is truth. Some things are simply true. That means we are commanded to teach truth. Thus, our commission as apostles is to teach nothing but truth.
I agree with President Nelson. This is what we should be able to expect from those who claim to speak for God. But unfortunately, his own relationship with the truth isn't up to that standard. Let's start with the time that President Nelson allegedly nearly died on a plane while he was on his way to the inauguration of W. Rolfe Kerr as president of Dixie College on November the 12th, 1976.
Years ago, while flying to the inauguration of a university president, where I was to offer the invocation. It was a short flight in a small 2-engine plane. We were halfway to our destination when the right engine suddenly exploded, spewing flaming fuel all over the right side of the plane. The plane was on fire, careening to the earth in a spiral dive. I expected to die. Miraculously, the dive extinguished the fire. The pilot was able to restore power to the other engine and make a safe landing. And I actually made it to the inauguration on time.
Now we know when this happened, we know where this happened, and we know roughly what type of aircraft he was flying in. We even know from Sherry Du's recent book that the emergency landing was made in a farmer's field near Delta, Utah. As emergency landings are a matter of public record and need to be reported to the NTSB in the United States, we should be able to find this incident no problem. Except we can't. There's nothing on the NTSB records. If any of you can find evidence that this did happen, please let me know in the comments. But traditionally, the burden of proof would be on Russel M. Nelson and those who support his claim to be able to provide evidence that what he describes actually occurred. But okay, sure, fine, he embellished or possibly made up a story for faith-promoting purposes. It's nothing Paul H. Dunn didn't do. However, I would argue it's worse to announce that a temple will be built in China without the Chinese government's approval. And let's be honest, if the Chinese government say no, then you aren't building a temple in China. And it's a lie to say that you are. The temple was announced here.
Shanghai, People's Republic of China. Context for the plan for Shanghai is very important. For more than 2 decades, temple-worthy members in the People's Republic of China have attended the Hong Kong China Temple. But in July 2019, that temple was closed for long-planned and much-needed renovation. In Shanghai, a modest multi-purpose meeting place will provide a way for Chinese members to continue to participate in ordinances of the temple in the People's Republic of China for them and their ancestors. The Shanghai Temple will not be a temple for tourists from other countries.
According to the Office of Shanghai Municipal Bureau of Ethnic and Religious Affairs, the Mormonism of the United States released the information about the establishment of the so-called temple in Shanghai. Our Civil Affairs Department had no knowledge of it. It was the wishful thinking of the Mormonism of the United States and made it out of nothing. So maybe he jumped the gun. Maybe this is China saving face because Russel M. Nelson announced too early. But if they never approved it in the first place, or if they're backtracking, Russel M. Nelson's apparent desire to outshine Gordon B. Hinckley at every turn, a relationship that has its own full video, seems to have led to the need to announce more temples than him, and in this case, a temple that it seems will never actually be built. It is now 2025, and there is no more news on this temple than there was after the statement from the Shanghai Municipal Bureau, and that was 5 years ago. And speaking of temples, President Nelson lied when he said,
God has not changed His definition of marriage. God has also not changed His law of chastity. Requirements to enter the temple have not changed.
Because the requirements have changed. In 1976, you could not be black and enter the LDS temple. In 1979, you could. It is really as simple as that. I could cover the other changes, such as the introduction of the word of wisdom in the early 1900s, but I don't need to. One significant change to the requirements to enter the temple is enough to prove his statement false, and I find it difficult to believe that Russel M. Nelson wasn't aware that before 1978, black people couldn't enter the temple. I've already covered this next one in my video where I broke down the entire talk, but I want to pull this particular point out again.
Thankfully, even the pandemic has not been able to slow the onward march of his truth.
This is not true. A global pandemic did slow the onward march of his truth, or the gospel, because convert baptisms were decreased by nearly 50%. But there is another layer to this. In that same time period, the church grew by $6 billion. So maybe that's what he means. Maybe the onward march of his truth is actually just the growth of his investment portfolio. If the prophet is misleading members of the church about the state of the gospel and its growth, whether it's announcing temples that won't be built or saying the church is growing when it isn't, is it not an example of a prophet leading us astray?
President Nelson, would you ever lead anyone astray?
Oh, no.
That's not what prophets do, is it?
Some of them have said, if the president of the church should ever lead people astray, God would take him away. So I like to stay here.
This is a lie. Russel M. Nelson knows he's lying because he also said,
To remove the Lord's name from the Lord's church is a major victory for Satan.
and that means that this
They will continue to call us the Mormons, the Mormon Church, and so forth. They could do worse. When I have seen the word Mormon used in the media to describe us, there flashes into my mind his statement, which has become my motto. Mormon means more good. We may not be able to change the nickname, but we can make it shine with added luster.
and this,
Dare to be a Mormon. Dare to stand alone. Dare to have a purpose firm. Dare to make it known.
and definitely this.
New York City is no stranger to new media. A fitting location as the church brought the I Am a Mormon campaign to Times Square this past June. Billboards and signs on taxi tops and inside subways featured images of many of the members' colorful profiles, along with a statement, I'm a Mormon.
Are major victories for Satan, propagated by the two prophets before Russel M. Nelson, encouraging the membership of the church to embrace a moniker which, by doing so, grants a victory for Satan, must surely qualify as leading the members of the church astray. So either those prophets led the members of the church astray and Russel M. Nelson is lying when he said that prophets won't, or he's lying when he says that it is a major victory for Satan. And there's no time-based caveat here. It's not like the sentiment is actually, the prophet won't lead you astray permanently, but he might for a little bit until God steps in. That's not the claim that Russel M. Nelson is making. And before people come in with the prophet is fallible excuse, I'm not frustrated because Russel M. Nelson is fallible. Ancient prophets were also fallible. Noah found drunk in a tent, Jonah trying to run away from where God wanted him to go. I'm frustrated because the idea that our current church leaders will not lead us astray is nonsense, and it's demonstrably false. According to Nelson himself, the two prophets before him did just that. And yet, according to Henry B. Eyring,
you could prepare by asking yourself questions like the following. 1. Have I thought or spoken of the human weaknesses in the people I have pledged to sustain? Those questions will, for most of us, lead to some uneasiness and a need to repent.
so we can't think about our church leaders as having human weaknesses, and we are told by at least 4 prophets that they'll never lead us astray. So if lying isn't leading members of the church astray, and teaching the members to use a name which creates a major victory for Satan isn't leading them astray, then maybe announcing something to be God's will that isn't is leading members of the church astray. Announcing God's will. You know, the one job that really matters for a prophet. Discerning and disseminating God's will by revelation. That's the whole job. And that leads to the question, were members of the church led astray by the November 2015 policy? When the November 2015 policy was introduced, it ensured children of same-sex parents could not be baptized until they were 18. after seeking permission from the First Presidency of the Church and denouncing the actions of their parents. This policy was the revealed will of God.
The First Presidency and Quorum of the 12 Apostles counsel together and share all the Lord has directed us to understand and to feel individually and collectively. And then we watch the Lord move upon the President of the Church to proclaim the Lord's will. This prophetic process was followed in 2012 with the change in minimum age for missionaries, and again with the recent additions to the Church's handbook, consequent to the legalization of same-sex marriage in some countries. We met repeatedly in the temple in fasting and prayer and sought further direction and inspiration. And then when the Lord inspired his prophet, President Thomas S. Monson, to declare the mind of the Lord and the will of the Lord, each of us during that sacred moment felt a spiritual confirmation.
When it was reversed, it was also touted as a revelation from God.
Consider the policy announced in November 2015 related to the advisability of baptism for children of LGBT parents. The First Presidency and Quorum of the 12 have continued to seek the Lord's guidance and to plead with him in behalf of his children who were affected by the 2015 policy. We knew that this policy created concern and confusion for some and heartache for others. That grieved us. Whenever the sons and daughters of God weep, for whatever reason, we weep. So our supplications to the Lord continued. As a result of our continued supplication, we recently felt directed to adjust the policy such that the baptism of children of LGBT parents may be authorized by bishops without First Presidency approval, if the custodial parents requested the baptism.
This is a confusing scenario, where a policy is revealed by God in 2015 and then revoked by God in 2019. What purpose did it serve if God did truly reveal it and then redact it? What was gained for the church or for God's children by that 3.5-year exclusionary policy? It caused many members of the church to resign, with 1,500 resigning in a single mass resignation event. What was the positive of those 3.5 years of exclusionary policy? Was God really trying to cull the herd, as I've heard from some people, to separate the wheat from the tares? Was that the purpose of this exclusionary policy? Was that his goal? But then we ask, if God didn't reveal it, but did have it removed, then the prophet led us astray for a few years before being corrected. Did Thomas S. Monson, who Russel M. Nelson states received the revelation, lead us astray? Did Russel M. Nelson have to get us back on track? No matter what went on here, it doesn't seem to be a good look for the sentiment that prophets never lead us astray. In conclusion, it would seem then that Russel M. Nelson has on more than one occasion knowingly made a false statement to the membership of the church, and to knowingly make a false statement is to lie. But I'll tell you what isn't a lie. These videos would not be possible without the support of you, the audience. Liking, commenting, sharing, it all helps. But particularly, those who support me financially are the reason these videos are able to be made at all. Without that support, this channel would not be feasible. So if you're in a position to do so, you can support me through any of the links in the description. My Patreon is particularly popular at the moment, with just $6 a month getting you access to exclusive live streams and early video releases. But no matter how you support me, make sure YouTube knows that you do by hitting the subscribe button and then watching this video here.